It is cold, airless, forbidding. The very precision of its operation, like a surrealistic dream. We can measure its movement and depth, but our minds cannot fathom its spiritual geometry. There are those among us who can comprehend its physical forces, but in the inner structure of our beings, we have not yet digested its meaning. Impressions of our Earth from space. Swirls of blue and white and green, illuminated sharply against a black background. A distant, cold beauty. Silent, lonely, timeless. From high above, seemingly placid.
I was among the crowds of men and women that came in droves to the foot of the mountain. There was excitement in the air as we made our way to the trail. We were in for a long hike. As people milled around me, I stopped to admire a view. The scenery was picturesque with green, lush forests and pristine blue lakes. I overheard fellow travelers talking nearby about the cascade and its mystical properties. Local legend told that the water would cause divine visions. According to the myth, the water from the ice cap only flows once every 100 years, and those who witness the vision are changed forever. The ascent gradually became steeper and narrower. It seemed to get hotter and hotter and more treacherous. Those of us that continued climbing reached a point where the trees were much fewer and the wind began to blow harder. The trail all but disappeared. One wrong step and any one of us would be free falling. After the steepest and rockiest portion of the climb, we saw the oasis near the summit. The cascade was glistening in the evening light, and one by one we approached, filled our vessels, and drank. I witnessed the death of the earth.
Victor Frankenstein was a brilliant young scientist. His curiosity and ambition knew no bounds. After years of study, he became obsessed with the alchemical creation of life. Frankenstein began employing unusual and occult practices. One night, he finally put his methodology to the test and attempted to bring a new being to life. Of the resultant creature shocked the young scientist, and he was abhorred by his creation. The rejected creature fled into the night. Without home or kin, it had nothing but vast forest to sustain it. It roamed the forest for many days and nights as its hatred grew for its creator. Victor lived in fear of the creature. The thought of the thing cost him many nights of sleep and haunted his nightmares. After a time, he was able to move on with his life and fell in love with a woman. But one night, the creature returned. It creeped in the door of Frankenstein's home, and it reaped a murderous vengeance. Victor knew when he saw the blood of his beloved that the creature was the culprit. In his sorrow, he vowed to slay the creature and take responsibility for his creation. The creature was long gone, but it had left a trail of blood for Victor to track it. He followed the creature into the woods and was never seen again.
Legislature, Columbia's ruling elite made journeys to Albany, New York to convince legislators that this was indeed a wonderful thing for the Morningside Heights community, that Columbia should build its gym there.
I don't think a gym 9 stories high with facilities for black people in the basement with a back door is something that black people want.
There has never been any dispute as to the position of this community on the placing of a gymnasium by a private institution in a public park.
I don't trust anybody in the administrative network of Columbia University because they have lied, they have contradicted themselves. Grayson Kirk wrote us a letter saying, we have stopped the gym. And the next damn day, the Board of Trustees states, we have stopped the gym temporarily.
This house went up on violence, and this country's going down on violence. As a house go up, our house must come down.
When we gathered Brandeis and we walking up Amsterdam Avenue to Columbia, we were talking about burning the fucking place down. And you know, we came up with baseball bats and hockey sticks, and when we got to Columbia, we broke through the police line.
They took H-Craft Brown in here. They what? They brought H-Craft Brown in here.
Here's a statement that was released by the students on the inside. I'll read the statement. Number 1, stopping of the construction of the gym. Number 2, dropping of the charges against all persons involved in demonstrations against the gym. Number 3, breaking of all faculty and administrative ties with IDA. Number 4, general amnesty for all the students involved. When the university has stopped construction of the gym, and granted an amnesty, we will consider the questions of negotiation with the university. We are prepared to remain indefinitely until these conditions are met. The black students of Columbia University, joined by a few members of the black community, have been in Hamilton Hall for 56 hours, more than that now. We have established a cafeteria with adequate stores for all contingencies. A physician is in charge of our infirmary. Morale is high.
One afternoon, in my grandpa's last year of life, he decided to confide in me as we watched a baseball game on TV. He was always a fan of the game. He told me that a long time ago the game was all about superstitions and rituals. Everyone had a trick or a charm. In 1923, my grandpa was not only the best player on the local team, but the best in the growing league. He told me he wasn't really that talented, but he had a secret weapon, and he had never told anyone about it. But he wanted to tell me. His first season went terribly, and he struck out most of the times he appeared at the plate. At the last practice, Paul Saxby, who's the best player on the team, approached my grandpa and told him where he got his lucky bird feather. The next day, Grandpa went out to the edge of town to find the old woman Paul had described, the one with the bird feather. She was a strange old hermit that lived in a shack, and when Grandpa told her the reason for his visit, she knew exactly what would help. She handed him an old necklace, decorated with silver and bone. He paid a few cents for the necklace, and wore it under his shirt for this first spring game of the next season. It made him confident, eager. The first pitch was a high fastball right up the middle. A slugger's dream. He smacked the ball as hard as he could. It was a laser of a hit. He heard a loud crack, and someone screamed from the stands. Nearly took the pitcher's head clean off. The blood was everywhere, but after that, he was unstoppable.
This was colonialism to Juan Desperado. And so this man fought for what he called freedom and for land reform in his nation of mostly farmers. His friend Núñez Iberas here had worked for several years as a mechanic in the Guantanamo Naval Base, and this is the American military base in Oriente Province off in eastern Cuba. Núñez was one of 8 children born to Guajiro parents, peasants who owned no land, who made their living cutting cane for one of the 161 sugar grinding mills on the island. Until Núñez was 15 years old, his world reached all the way from his bohío to the general store in the village. And the bohío was home. That is, it was a squat, usually windowless, airless shack made of leftover palm tree lumber. The Bohio was home to hundreds of thousands of Cuba's peasants who lived and worked their lives away under conditions that were the rule in Europe about 1,000 years back. Now, these were primitive farming conditions under which the peasants aged fast and died young. Nunez was 15 years old when his father died, at the ripe old age of 36. His father was helped to an early death by a variety of infections and diseases that still affect most of his people, that is, outside the cities. There were health services in Cuba, and there were good ones, too, in the cities, but they didn't quite reach down to the level of this man and his family. Hunger reached down to the level of this man, though. Nunez knew hunger every year of his life, even when his parents both had jobs during the sugar time. During the very long off-sugar season, when there was no other work of any kind to be had, things would get pretty desperate for these people. Nunez Iberas joined Fidel Castro in the Sierra Maestra Mountains back in 1956, and he had one burning ambition by that time, was to see Cuba free. Free of governments that did little or nothing for the bulk of Cuba's people, that is, the farming peasants, and free of a way of life that kept the guacheros out of the 20th century.
They never used to bother me. It's all lighthearted fun and jokes. I even felt sorry for them, because so many people are afraid of them. They were just trying to do a job, make people smile. But I keep seeing them. After a while, it started to disturb me. They were never hostile, just doing their performance antics. I just don't understand why I keep seeing them.
Years of slave labor, 310 years, every day of which your and my mother and father worked for nothing. Not 8 hours a day. There was no union in that day. They worked from sun up until sundown, from can't see in the morning until can't see at night. They never had a day off. And on Sunday, they were allowed to sit down and sing about when they die, they wouldn't be slaves no more. When they die, have a philosophy or a gospel. I don't care whether it's a religious gospel, a political gospel, an economic gospel, or a social gospel. If it's not going to do something for you and me right here, right now, to hell with that gospel. So we have to have a new approach, a new appraisal. And this new appraisal and new approach has to be in tune with the reality of the conditions that we are in after having been thoroughly brainwashed by this blue-eyed white man. Some of them have brown eyes. When you live in a poor neighborhood, you're living in an area where you have to have poor schools. When you have poor schools, you have poor teachers. When you have poor teachers, you get a poor education. Poor education, you can only work on a poor-paying job. And that poor-paying job enables you to live again in a poor neighborhood. So it's a very vicious cycle.
I witnessed the death of Gary.
Something is growing. It started congealing in the depths of North American landfills. What began as a primordial ooze grew and multiplied, feeding on decay. Banana peels, apple cores, meat clinging to rib, dead mice, rats, birds, raccoons. It tore through endless garbage bags, thriving as it adapts to consume plastic. Bottles, Tupperware, toys, cling wrap, utensils, lawn chairs, It bubbles together, becoming tendrils stretching for miles in every direction. It feeds and it churns, knowing nothing but insatiable hunger. It approaches the surface.
Nearly took the pitcher's head clean off.
says Mao Zedong. China's communist revolution must begin in the rural areas and sweep over the cities. Chiang Kai-shek, succeeding Sun Yat-sen, works with the communists at first, but in 1927 he purges them from his government. These are able to drive the red troops into the mountains, but he can never wipe them out. And in 1934, Mao Zedong undertakes his long march in search of sanctuary in the remote province of Shenxi, in the caves of Yan'an. It is as if an army had been ordered to march on foot 6,000 miles through hostile territory in 1 year. Following a tortuous roundabout route, the communists cross 18 mountain ranges, some of them higher than the European Alps. In the beginning, there are 180,000 marchers in the communist caravan, curling across the hills and plains of China for 50 miles and more. Casualties are enormous. 3/4 of the marchers die en route. But the survivors press on, and when they reach their mountain sanctuary, Mao himself is on hand to salute and welcome them. He is and has been throughout the long march in full command.
It will be cloudy, usually nighttime. It will be quiet, but windy, like a storm is coming in. I'm in a city, but I don't recognize anything. Before long, I hear something in the distance. There will be something in the corner of my eye. The flashing lights, though, they really give it away.
students took to the streets to protest the elections in which supporters of Edigorus won most of the seats. Unarmed army officers did their best to break up the marchers. They did not succeed, and things got out of control. Normally quiet, Edigorus opposition screamed foul and demanded his resignation. The communists egged on the unstudious, politically minded students and provided the militant inspiration they needed. Edigorus, having the backing of the army, the national police, and his private force of ununiformed judicial police, sent them out to quell the rioters and restore order. Guns were freely used. Tear gas bombs resulted in chaos. For the first 3 days, the students were alone in their protest. They fought the police with rocks and the weight of numbers. As the week progressed, adults joined the mob. Business was at a standstill, and Edigorus held firm. Soon the adults withdrew, licking their wounds, sorry for their feeble protest. They wondered what they would face when it was all over. Peace was not quickly restored. The demonstrations went on for months. The judicial police, in plain clothes, and the national police soon gained the upper hand. Support of the government grew out of fear of reprisal as violence and brutality reached its peak. Guns were put away for primitive weapons. Machetes and clubs were brought out to do their work more quietly, but no less efficiently.
Crowds of people drawn to the water, all based on one returning vessel's crew that swore that somewhere beyond the horizon there existed a paradise. A land with no war, no debt, no racism, no pollution, no exploitation. People there control their own lives, and they collectively controlled the fate of paradise. We were eager to finally reach the utopian shore. Even if it was an illusion, we looked forward to starting over.